Hi, I'm Vanessa Conlin, Master of Wine and Head of Wine at Wine Access. And today I'm going to be tasting part of the Wine Folly Discover France set. This is the non-vintage Brut Langlois-Chateau Cremant de Loire. So we're in the heart of France here. The Loire Valley is a very long region. It's hard to sort of generalize in terms of soils, but there's lots of tuffeau, limestone there. And what we're tasting today is a wine made in what we call the champagne method, or the traditional method, or the method champenoise. But if you watched the first video of this set where we talked about the Brugnon champagne, what we learned is even though it's made in the same method, we cannot call this champagne because it is not from the region of Champagne. However, what this is a great way to find value. If you want to enjoy a beautiful traditionally made sparkling wine outside of Champagne, Cremant de Loire is calling your name. So we'll talk about more about this region, but first let's taste what's in our glass in front of us. So as you can see, there's a sort of beautiful fine mousse, this sort of very delicate bubbles in this wine. It's sort of a pale lemon. And on the nose, really intriguing, sort of a red apple, white flower. There's a bit of red fruit note to it as well, almost like a fresh raspberry. And just a hint of this sort of marzipan note as well on the nose. So tasting the wine, and again, when you taste, I really want to encourage you to swish the wine all around. Don't be afraid to look silly. You're just going to enjoy the wine even more for having it touch every corner of your palate. And then I encourage you also to just sit with the wine for a moment after you've tasted it to assess not just what you're tasting, but what you're feeling on your palate. So the first thing I noticed, well, there's actually two things. There's a beautiful freshness to this wine, that mouth-watering crisp acidity that I look for in sparkling wine, but also there's a beautiful textural sort of spherical note on the palate. When we tasted Champagne, there was a much more linear sort of palate shape. This has a rounder, sort of softer, more voluptuous feel to it. I'm getting that red apple note, some of that raspberry again on the palate, and a very, very long finish. It's sort of lush and long and really intriguing and makes me want to go back for more. So the varieties in this bottle are Chenin Blanc, Cabernet Franc, and Chardonnay. Chardonnay, of course, being in common with Champagne, those other two not. So Chenin Blanc you might know from bottlings of Vouvray. It's a variety that has this sort of sneaky acidity where it's very fresh, it's very lively acidity, but it kind of has this slow crescendo build on your palate. Cabernet Franc, of course, is a red variety, but pressed off the skins here in order to make a pale wine. It has that sort of red fruited note, sort of a perfume and this sort of raspberry, beautiful, enticing aroma and flavor to it. And then Chardonnay, as we know from still bottlings of white Burgundy or from Champagne, has again a very bright sort of focused acidity to it, apple and citrus, and a beautiful white floral note as well. The producer behind this bottle is the same producer of Bollinger in Champagne. So owns this chateau in the Loire, but being one of the most famous producers in Champagne, you can imagine the type of investment and quality that they've made into their chateau in the Loire Valley. And if you haven't heard of Lily Bollinger, you should know her. She was a badass. So she actually produced wine all during World War II when she was risking her life to check on the vineyards, riding her bike during airstrikes. But a very, very famous producer left an amazing legacy and has carried on this legacy by expanding into the Loire Valley with the Langlois and Chateau. If you've enjoyed tasting this wine with me from the Loire Valley, stick around because we're staying in this beautiful region, the Garden of France, as we taste a Sancerre next.